Do you remember your first bicycle? Mine was red, and my dad had salvaged it from the dump because he could fix anything. I grew up on a farm in southern Ontario, and that meant I was not allowed to ride on the country roads. I could go up and down my driveway, and later when I was older, I was allowed to go out in the fields to bring in the cows. I remember the feeling of being in control of my speed, my direction, and I had so much freedom. I moved off the farm when I was 17, and leaving behind the animals and the country bikes, I put myself behind the wheel of a little red car. So many years later, I became mom of this beautiful little boy, and I ran alongside him when he had his first bicycle. Mother and son would ride along the Humber River Trail, and whenever we had to ride a city street, I was so stressful. That sign, bike lane, ends here. So in the spring of 2013, I decided to commute to my office on my bicycle. The company that I was working for moved from an industrial wasteland up at the airport down to a very vibrant Sherbourne and Adelaide hood. My round trip was 32 kilometers. I started with 2 days a week, and then I added another day, and then I bought some new panniers, and I kept my shoes and my toiletries at my desk, and all of a sudden I was riding 5 days a week to the office. I was strong, confident, and jazzed, and I arrived every morning with a brand new idea, at least one. The first winter came, and I had to leave my bike in the shed. I didn't know how to ride in the winter. And so I now was in a state of hating transit. I didn't want to drive my car downtown, so I had to figure this out. I decided I wasn't going to let a little snow stop me. So I asked a lot of questions of seasoned riders and bought myself a used bike. It was rusty and had steel-studded tires. My first ride in the winter was thrilling and magical. It also turned out to be the worst snowstorm of the day in the whole of winter in Toronto that year. Regardless, cycling through the snowfall that morning was like I was in a snow globe. It was peaceful. I was controlling my direction, my speed, and I was free now in all seasons. So not only was cycling changing how I transported my life, transported myself from A to B, but I started channeling my extra energy and creativity into my volunteer work. Because when you're on the street every day, you see a lot of stuff. And I became an advocate for safe streets because I had this new perspective. I wanted kids to have the opportunity to ride their bikes to school. I wanted people to get out of their vehicles and onto a bike and feel the joy that I was experiencing. So I became a spokesperson for cycling, and it was starting to change my life in so many different ways. Not only did I view the streetscape through a new lens, but I also saw myself differently. I became co-captain of Cycle Toronto's Ward 13 bike group. I initiated numerous social bike rides, built political relationships, wrote proposals to the City of Toronto Department of Transportation, had meetings with local businesses and BIAs, tried to engage communities to care about cycling infrastructure in their neighborhoods, and I sought to professional development to be the best I could for the ward. And then I founded the Reading Line, where we produced book rides combining my love of books and bicycles. And in partnership with companies like BikeShare, Curbside Cycle, and Danforth BIA. It was a moving literary festival funded by the Toronto Arts Council promoting local authors. Combining words, public space, and bicycles to create a community through a shared physical experience. And after 5 years of producing events in Toronto and Brampton, I believed that any town or city could benefit from a book ride. And I really wanted to share this idea with the world. And so I did. I went to Moscow last year, in February, and I rode with 2,000 Russians. This is their annual parade. It was the most astounding thing I did as we went around the Kremlin. Uh-oh. Okay. The Russians were there, along with 29 or 39 countries there to discuss how people riding their bicycles resulted in increased use of the entire transit system, air quality enrichment, and climate mitigation. I was so inspired that I became even more committed to improving sustainable urban transportation. A bicycle was adding new words to my vocabulary as well. So this year, I went to Copenhagen for a masterclass with urban planners and traffic engineers. School was never as much fun as with this group of people, and it made me feel like I was on that little red bicycle again because I could try anything. But in the past 12 months, 4 events have rocked my world. 1, I endured workplace stress, and I'm not one who asks for help, but I had to. So I sought psychological advice, I got some coping mechanisms, and I lasted until, yes, I was laid off and my beloved team was dismantled. I was gonna say disemboweled, but no, dismantled. 2, I legally separated from my husband of 25 years back in 2015, but I wanted like that gay divorcee title. So in 2018, I filed for a divorce. God damn it if I didn't have all the feelings of failure rise up again. 3, my one and only son graduated university with high distinctions, and we annually voted each other best roommate of the year. But he got a job, which was amazing, but it launched him all the way over to Vancouver. And 4, my mother's health declined over the year. I thought she was going to die in April, but she didn't. And so I went ahead with my plans and left the country for Malawi, where I was co-leading a team for Habitat for Humanity. And I continued traveling as planned, and she died May 17th while I was in Madagascar cycling. So I became untethered with the lemurs. I didn't realize, though, how these 4 endings really affected me until I was cycling 100 kilometers a day in the middle of Madagascar. And as I pedaled up into the highlands, down into the rainforest, emerging at the head of a savanna, and down to the Tropic of Capricorn, I cycled 540 kilometers through my grief. Not only the loss of my mother, my marriage, my career, and a life that included late-night kitchen talks with my son, but the sadness, guilt, grief, and sweat poured off me. This was the most mentally challenging journey I'd ever been on, and now it was not only a physical marathon, but an emotional one. And did you know that the baobab tree is called Africa's tree of life? It can grow 15 meters in its circumference, and the trunk can hold 4,500 liters of water. That's like 10,000 glasses of water. I thought of my mother often as she provided life to me and to all those who knew her. There was one back road we were on, and she was in my thoughts, and there appeared that bright blue butterfly, keeping pace with my front tire. She was with me. My mom was with me. But let me say, cycling did not make the grief go away. It actually felt like it was intensifying my loss. I was alone in a foreign exotic country with a group of 15 people who were strangers, albeit slowly becoming friends. But being in control of my bicycle, as I moved myself forward through speed and time, helped in the processing. My pedal power and my thoughts spun around, and eventually I found balance, like how you do when you first ride your bike. And I know that a bicycle didn't change my life, but it's how I use that feeling, being in control of my speed, my direction, resulting in feeling that freedom. And if I keep pedaling forward, I can go anywhere, on or off my bike. And this week, I'm taking my Brompton, my folding bike, on a 5-week train trip across North America and ending up in Vancouver to be with my son. I am cycling into change using my pedal power. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you so much. I enjoyed that. Wow. All these mountains, I feel like we're in a magazine tonight or something, right? Yeah, gorgeous travelogue. Thank you. Any questions for Janet Joy?
I was reminded of the feminism start for bicycling.
Oh.
You know, talk about how being a woman and finding freedom. The bloomers and the fashion were changed because women were riding bicycles and finding that freedom. So it was like the suffragettes finding a way to escape. And I thought of that. Heather reminded me of that, and I thought that was an important thing that I might think about later.
Have you been to the play Spin?
Yes, Evelyn Perry, Spin.
If you haven't, go to the play. It's amazing.
And some of and the music that was a part of that, she wrote based on true stories, like the history of women and cycling, and the music is fabulous, but the storytelling that she does is awesome. And in the show, they use a bicycle as one of their instruments. Well, it was within the last 12 months, which is why it's at work. It was over a year of knowing the end was coming, like the writing's on the wall, and then in 2018, at the end of it was, summer into the early fall was when the finalizing of the papers. But it was going back to the same lawyer and saying, okay, you know what, now do the filing, and just so I can totally be divorced. And so it kind of brought up all those things. My son left in July. My mom just died in May. So it was the whole, and I didn't know even the foursome doing what it did to me mentally and emotionally until I was actually just last month. I'm going to rewind one more month. At the end of July, I go on an annual backcountry canoe trip with women, and this year we went really far north. And the last night of the trip, I woke in the middle of the night and saw a bear. He was looking in the side of the tent, and I remember thinking, okay, put my light on. No, make noise. And then I looked next to my tent mate, and I thought, oh, he'll eat April 1st. And then the bear's face of who, like, I was looking at this bear, you know, at whatever hour in the middle of the night, it disappeared, faded away. And I listened, because I also, you know, did the pinchy. Am I awake? I think I'm awake. I am awake. And then I listened for any sound and realized, there wasn't a bear there, but it was. And so in the morning when I was sharing the story with my canoe mates, I said I had a visit from a spirit bear. And then my dear friend Tracy shared with me what some meanings of that could be. And I realized at the end of August that I had spent the month in a cave. I needed to have some cave time. And now I feel like I've emerged. So it's a good time you booked me in September. Because last month, all those four things really culminated in feeling really sad and just wanting to stay in my little cave. So thanks.